Hey guys, Tom Barton from TomBartonSports.com here. Week 1 is over. We go and talk about week 2 and the overreactions. I mean, what is there to overreact about, right? The Texans are in first place. The Browns are in first place. The Seahawks are in first place. The Bears are in first place. And the Giants are in first place. Everything is normal. This is what we expected, right? We're going to talk about the overreactions that matter and the overreactions that we should absolutely overlook going into week 2 here in the NFL. And it is kind of funny. Look, Browns won a home game for the first time in 17 years. If you're a betting person, the Detroit Lions, they have not been a home favorite, or they haven't been a favorite for 24 straight weeks. They will be a favorite this week. The Giants are the second leading team. They'll be a favorite. It's been 15 weeks since they've been a favorite. There is complete chaos after week 1 in the NFL. We're going to get into all that. Guys, if you like me, check me out at TomBartonSports.com, at TomBartonSports over on Twitter. That's how you get in touch with me, TomBartonSports over at gmail.com. Please also like this channel and subscribe, and let me comment as well. Let me hear your comments as well. I want to get into it. All right, let's get into this week. And some of the comments and things that have gone on really do show that no matter how much we try to learn from our past, we just don't. Right? I mean, people overreact and freak out. Both Super Bowl teams lost. That's it. The Rams are a mess. The Bengals throw them in the garbage. I mean, it really is a complete and utter overreaction. I mean, even during the game itself, I was in Vegas for the week. Great time, by the way, out there. And you're in the sports book and you hear comments. And Jameis Winston's the worst quarterback ever. And then he goes and throws for 200 yards in the fourth quarter alone. Oh, Jameis Winston. Yeah. I knew it all along. This was going to be the guy. I was sitting next to Bears fans, actually, who were destroying Justin Fields. He was terrible. Walks away with a win. Hey, I think we got a future there. So it is kind of funny how you have the ebbs and flows, and we sit around all the way since early February. We sit all summer long, all spring long, waiting for the NFL to come up. 1 week comes up, and it changes our perception about everything. It is the overreaction of overreactions. I do my Vegas show that I've been doing for more than a decade now, my buddy Tim, and we always have overreaction Sunday night. And what will the overreaction Monday be? Why? Because it's so crazy to how the public really in the NFL goes from highs to lows and everywhere in between. And there are some overreactions, guys, that actually matter. There are some overreactions that aren't really overreactions. They're reactions because of what our eyes tell us. And then there are some overreactions that you say, okay, I'm not that worried. Last year, the Bills lost week 1 to the Pittsburgh Steelers, right? I mean, we go, okay, no big deal. In fantasy community, people are already cutting bait. That's it. Cole Kmet got 1 target. He didn't catch a ball. Worst tight end in history. Well, it was kind of a monsoon. Justin Fields completed like 8 passes, and don't freak out. So there are certain situations where you just have to kind of take a step back, take a deep breath, and move on. But there are certain situations that you go, okay, that right there might be a harbinger of something to come. That right there is something to pay attention to. I'll talk, since I mentioned the Steelers, and I gave that out as my free play all over social media, but I mentioned the Steelers, and I want to look at the Bengals. Look, the Pittsburgh Steelers winning a game that they were an underdog, not a big surprise. Mike Tomlin's a very good coach. I told you guys I like Pittsburgh this year to fight for a playoff spot. I know that a lot of people didn't, but Mike Tomlin's a good coach. They still have a really good defense. TJ Watt, to me, is the best defensive player in the game. So we kind of thought that that's how that would go. But the big concern here and the overreaction that you could have is the Cincinnati Bengals. Well, Joe Burrow looked absolutely putrid. He looked absolutely scared and terrified and bad in the pocket. But how do we react to that? Well, there's 2 ways to react to the Joe Burrow situation, because you look at Joe Burrow and you go, okay, he missed time in camp. He's already been injured behind this offensive line, but it's not exactly this offensive line. But you can see him being a little skittish, a little off. I am reacting and not overreacting here, because I do think that the Cincinnati Bengals offensive line is terrible. They were the worst in the league last year. Joe Burrow got sacked more than anybody else in the league last year. And they tried to improve it, but it's going to take a little while to get going. I am reacting and not overreacting to Joe Burrow's offensive line being absolutely terrible this year. I think the Pittsburgh defense will be pretty good. Missing TJ Watt's going to be a problem. You go to the New York Jets. Look, I mean, Joe Flacco threw the ball 59 times. He was the second person that didn't have as many dropbacks, because Joe Burrow did in overtime. He beat him in dropbacks. But basically, the Jets are going to fling it all over the field and try to throw it. You could talk about game script, and they were down a lot in the game. But I think that this is a overreaction. Look, Joe Burrow, he's going to throw the ball. Joe Flacco, you don't want throwing the ball 59 times. And eventually Wilson's going to get back. He's going to throw it a lot less. I think that this Jets team does become a running team, so that's something to pay attention to. To me, that is a reaction, not an overreaction kind of situation. Carson Wentz went nuts. 4 touchdown passes. You know, this is a reaction for me and not an overreaction that Carson Wentz can be a good player. We've seen glimpses of Carson Wentz being a good player. He's got a slew of receivers that all have a lot of talent, and they don't play the toughest schedule. Also, I don't think they have any confidence in Antonio Gibson, who really is a pass catcher out of the backfield. He's not that bell cow back. So I think that Wentz can have a pretty good year. But the Washington defense, yeah, they were run all over by Jacksonville. I think that is a problem until they get their guys back like Chase Young and whatnot. How about the Detroit Lions? Detroit, this is a reaction to an overreaction to an overreaction to Hard Knocks. I mean, that's really what it is. Look, people were excited about the Detroit Lions. Then they were getting crushed. They did let up 38 points. Their defense is bad. Their corners are atrocious. Their secondary is not very good. So you could throw on this team, and you could probably run on them a little bit as well. They are a little early, and I was telling people that after watching Hard Knocks. People loved the Detroit Lions. It's a little early for them. But there also is that reaction here that isn't an overreaction. The reaction here is that Detroit doesn't quit. You could like Dan Campbell, you could not like Dan Campbell. Detroit does not quit. They came back in that game. Last year, they were in tight in every game. They're going to be that tough out game each and every week. I mentioned Jameis Winston. What's the reaction, overreaction here? Nothing. I just think that this is what you get with Jameis. He's going to look bad for a while. He's going to throw a lot of interceptions, and he's going to have a quarter like that where he goes absolutely nuts. The Atlanta Falcons, look, they rushed for 200 yards in New Orleans with basically backup running backs. I think that the script didn't realize it. I'm not reacting to either one of these. How about Tampa Bay? This is not an overreaction because anybody that would listen to me say, yeah, Tampa Bay is going to be having a problem. They are missing 3 offensive linemen, interior offensive linemen, maybe now a 4th for this week. Tom Brady is going to be getting crushed back there. And you can look at the final score and say, well, no, Tampa Bay won, and they won with defense. No. Tom Brady was running for his life the entire time. This is not what you want from Tampa Bay. Long term, over the summer, when I heard that these guys went out, I said, look, I'm taking Tampa Bay out of the Super Bowl equation, even with Tom Brady. And my reaction might be an overreaction overall, but I hated what I saw with the offensive linemen. Carolina, yeah, you look at the Carolina Panthers, you go, okay, is there an overreaction or a reaction? I don't know if there's any reaction at all. They played really well. You could look at Baker Mayfield played poorly for a little while, and then he played well at the end. I think people are overreacting to Christian McCaffrey, not absolutely exploding, but the Browns have a good defense, and obviously they were just going to contain him. How about the New York Giants? The overreaction, well, here we go. The Giants are in first place. They finally have a coach, right? The overreaction is to get really excited about this team. Saquon's healthy. The reaction is Saquon is healthy, and I think that he's going to be a productive player anytime he's healthy. He's going to be a top player in the league anytime he's healthy. But the overreaction here is that Brian Daboll could walk on water and make the Giants into a playoff team this year. They were getting destroyed in that game. They were getting absolutely annihilated in that game. Now, good news for Giants fans. You have a head coach that won't just stay with the script, and he'll kind of move it around. And he said, okay, if things are not working, just go after Barkley. And I love the, cojones on Brian Daboll to go for the win there as well. So it's a new culture in New York. Just don't get too crazy. I heard Giants fans going, hey, we got a shot at the playoffs now. Nah, calm down. You're still probably a 5 or 6 win team, but a 5 or 6 win team that could have some interesting, exciting games. Overreaction in New England? Yeah, I don't know if this is an overreaction, guys. The offense is terrible, and Bill Belichick, I don't want to say it. Bill Belichick's time might be done. Look, the New England Patriots have always been ahead of the curve. They've always been the team ahead of the curve, and I've defended Belichick to the hilt. But it just looks like Belichick kind of outthought himself here this year and over the last couple of years. He's going defense, and then loses a guy like J.C. Jackson. He's going defense, but his offense just literally can't move the ball. Harris is okay, and Stevenson is a talent, but they're not quite there yet. I'm not going to completely just rip on them because Devontae Parker was being covered by just one of the best corners in the league. I get that. But you have to be able to throw the ball, and they simply can't. Their offensive line isn't good either. I think this is a year-long problem. I don't think this is an overreaction. This is a year-long problem in New England. Indianapolis, people are going to call this an overreaction. I am not. This is a problem. I told you before the year it was going to be a problem. Indianapolis showed me everything I needed to know in that first game. Why? Because, look, I know it wasn't a crazy scoring game for Davis Mills in Houston, but Indianapolis is that team. Lost their defensive coordinator, lost their star middle linebacker, have problems on defense. I thought the defense would be there unraveling. Offensively, there is the overreaction that I heard that Matt Ryan's done. Matt Ryan can't play anymore. Matt Ryan, the game has passed him by. I think that is the overreaction. But Indianapolis being this powerhouse team because of their defense, you have to lose something if you lose your defensive coordinator and best middle linebacker. And they're going to be without them for a little while. Indy won't be this bad, this long. But that's an overreaction on the Matt Ryan side, not an overreaction on the bad defensive side. How about Jacksonville? What is the overreaction in Jacksonville? I think they played a fine game. They had a chance to win the game. You can say that the overreaction is maybe, Trevor Lawrence just isn't that guy. Hey, if you're saying that, you are overreacting. There's still a lot of time left. But I did like the fight coming out of Jacksonville. I don't know if there's too much noise coming out of Jacksonville other than, hey, Christian Kirk is a true number one receiver. And I do like this defense. Walker looked really good and really fast out there. How about the Baltimore Ravens? Overreaction? Lamar Jackson won't run this year because he's on a contract. Well, you did see that against the Jets. He basically didn't run at all. They were in a throwing script, which was weird because they have no running backs and they had a big lead. But that, to me, is an overreaction. I think Lamar Jackson, when he's up against big teams, when he's up against good defense, he's going to revert back to what Lamar Jackson does. And what Lamar Jackson does is run the football. So that is the overreaction. The reaction coming out of Miami. Well, what is the reaction coming out of Miami? Tyreek Hill didn't miss a beat. It doesn't matter. Tua is basically Mahomes. I mean, that is the complete overreaction. It was a bad game script, but they are going to feed Tyreek Hill. So that is a reaction you could take from this. They are definitely going to feed him. They want to go to him early and they want to go to him often. That is something to pay attention to. One of the biggest overreactions that you had was the Rams are done. Stafford's elbow's terrible. It's falling off. I mean, I had a little fun with the whole thing before time because I was betting on the Bills. But guys, look, the Rams, are we kidding me? Stafford doesn't have any elbow problems right now. Or at least the Rams are not showing that because they let him throw the ball all day. I'm not worried about that. Cooper Kupp was exactly what we all knew Cooper Kupp was going to be. He is that guy. The problem is, and this is the perfect reaction, the Rams might have problems this year against upper echelon teams because they can't run the ball. They simply cannot run the ball. Akers is in the doghouse, sure you could say that, but he's still not recovered. He doesn't look himself. My wife's a Florida State alumni. You can see the little helmet up there of Florida State. Well, in Florida State, he had a certain pizzazz about him. He had a certain cut method. I just don't see that in Los Angeles, and the injury is probably why. Darrell Henderson, not the bell cow back that you want back there. So they're going to have to rely upon Stafford's elbow, and if it's not hurting now, it might be hurting as the year goes on. I didn't not like the Rams here this year. I thought that they were just the clear better team in that division and probably in the entire NFC. I'm a little bit hesitant now to say that they're a Super Bowl team again. I'm a little hesitant now to even say that I trust them against big teams in big spots because that running game, it's not my overreaction. San Francisco 49ers, the overreaction is Trey Lance is garbage. Bring in Jimmy Garoppolo. Let's get it done. It was a monsoon. I mean, look, it's as simple as that. It was one of the wettest fields I could imagine. Bad turf. This is what it was. But I will say this. I don't think anybody should expect Trey Lance to just all of a sudden become, Joe Montana. I don't think he's that guy. You have to look at Trey Lance as almost what Jalen Hurts was last year. And if you do that and keep your expectations there, that's fine. He also was missing George Kittle. Forget about the receiving option of George Kittle. That's the best blocking tight end in the NFL. That will cause problems. He also lost Eli Mitchell. Now, I know Jeff Wilson's a good running back, but he lost him. A lot of problems going up against San Francisco. Let's see how he reacts now before we overreact to San Francisco. How about in Seattle? Seattle, the overreaction. That's it. Let Geno cook. What? I mean, that's really what it was. They just had a good game script, but if you watch the game itself, Denver moved the ball all day long. Now Seattle's without Jamal Adams. I don't think you want Geno throwing the ball all that much. This should be a Rashad Penny handoff, get Walker back handing it off when they do, but maybe Seattle isn't as bad. Maybe the real reaction we should take out from this is Seattle's just not just going away. I thought that they would be one of the top 2 or 3 picks in the draft. Maybe you could take that away, but let's calm down with the let Geno Smith throw it all over the place. I mean, even DK Metcalf had a lot of receptions, but his yardage was terrible because they were Dinkin' Ducks and Tyler Lockett. I mean, he doesn't exist for Geno Smith. Russ loved him. Geno Smith, he doesn't even exist. Dallas Cowboys. Overreaction, season's over. That's it. Done. You've seen the memes. I've seen the memes. The Dallas Cowboys season is over. Here's the thing. Cooper Rush could probably keep their heads above water. They are a run-first team. We all hate Ezekiel Elliott. I get it. If you're in the fantasy community. I don't. I mean, the guy, he's efficient, and you got Pollard back there. They're going to be a run-first team. They're going to use their tight ends. Cooper Rush can get that done, and defense should be leading this game. And we watched that with Micah Parsons. He really was that defensive player that stepped up, and he was that guy. So I'm not writing Dallas off. By the way, Dak does come back in enough time where they could make that late push. If they could keep their head above water, and I'm not even asking them to go 500, just don't bury yourself. Just don't go 1-7 or 2-6 or something like that. You come out of this at 3-5, and he comes back in week 9, or 3-6 even. You can sneak back into it to 4-6. Can you do that? Can you win 4 of the next 9 games, 10 games? I'm not asking for a lot, so I'm not overreacting there. The Denver Broncos, look, it is what it is. Nate Hackett is a clown. I've said that a million times. I just don't like him as a head coach. I didn't like him in Green Bay. Well, obviously I'm a Bears fan, but I didn't like what went on. But he's going to get better. Don't overreact that this guy should be fired right now. Russell Wilson and that offense move the ball well. Fumble inside with Melvin Gordon, who, by the way, leads the NFL in fumbles since he's come into the league, and he's second in basically the last 10 years. I mean, look, he does have fumbling problems, but Javonte Williams also fumbled on the one. So they can move the ball. I'm not overreacting to the Denver loss. And I'm not overreacting to the Houston win, although I did say that Houston was going to win. It was on my card at the Westgate, right? I said Houston's going to take this game. And I like the Davis Mills situation. I like the young receivers, but they really didn't do anything spectacular. It was more of an inefficiency from Indy. So hold off on crowning Houston the South champions. All right, what about Arizona? Overreaction, that's it. A mess. Kyler Murray's a disaster. Cliff Kingsbury can't coach. All right, well, maybe that's not an overreaction because Cliff Kingsbury cannot coach. And Lamar Murray is definitely overrated. But I think Arizona is going to be a lot better than what we watched. They just got blitzed by potentially the best quarterback in the league in a game where they were just coming back and they were without weapons. We know it was the first game in an Arizona Cardinals uniform for Hollywood Brown. Zach Ertz was banged up. You looked at there was no Benjamin, there was no Hopkins, who was suspended for 6 weeks. Arizona will be a lot better. I still don't have them as a playoff team, but they'll be a lot better than what we saw in week 1. The Raiders, there might be some time for concern. Overreaction is, hey, Devontae Adams, best wide receiver in the league. Yeah, but he was just peppered all day long. Derek Carr went to him over and over and over and over and over again. And while that could work with the Rams and Cooper Kupp, I don't think that's long-term success. You got to spread the ball around. You still have to include Hunter Renfrow, and you need a running game. That's the overreaction for the Raiders. The Chicago Bears, the overreaction. Hey, we could win every game sloppy. Yeah, you probably could win every game sloppy. I like the running game. I like Justin Fields. I like what you get there defensively. But not every game's going to be sloppy. And this is going to be automatically a test here in week 2 against Green Bay. Their nemesis, Monday Night Football, Sunday Night Football in Lambeau. It's going to be a tough one. Now, Justin Fields getting out of the pocket, and I like the idea that they're going to let him use his athleticism. But let's not go out there and say, hey, we can win every game ugly. There are going to be some games that are ugly and not into the Bears' liking of being ugly. How about the Green Bay Packers? The overreaction there is that Aaron Rodgers misses Devontae Adams too much and he will not recover. Aaron Rodgers looked absolutely brutal. And in true Aaron Rodgers piece of garbage fashion, he came to the podium afterwards and said, oh, there was a missed blocking assignment there, and they missed that, and there was a missed catch down, pointing fingers to everybody but himself, right? I mean, that's Aaron Rodgers. That's just what he does. I think that Aaron Rodgers will be fine. I think he's going to create with Watson and Lazard coming back. He'll create a receiver. He certainly won't be Devontae Adams. But this team is going to be a run-first team anyway. I think Green Bay is still going to be okay. This is a team that wins 13 games like every year in their sleep. There have been multiple times in Aaron Rodgers' career they get off to a terrible start, lose game 1, and then they lose the last game of the season, of course. But sandwiched in the middle of that is usually like 13 wins. I think Green Bay will be fine. Maybe not 13 wins this year, but they'll still get into the double digits without a problem. Buffalo Bills, they are going to the Super Bowl. The overreactions, they're going to the Super Bowl. And let me tell you something, it's not an overreaction. The Buffalo Bills are the most talented team. They went out there and humiliated the Rams on national TV in the Rams' house without their best cornerback, guys. People forget that White was out of this game. Poyer missed a lot of camp. This is a team that's only going to get better as the year goes by. Yeah, that's scary for the rest of the NFL. There is no overreaction here. That is strictly a reaction. The Buffalo Bills are the best team in the NFL, and if they don't have their mental lapses, which we've seen them have before, if they don't have their mental lapses, they will absolutely cruise to not only a division title, not only an AFC championship, they'll probably cruise to a Super Bowl. It's their time. The Tennessee Titans, the overreaction is, yeah, you know what? They missed Brown a little bit. Yeah, you can't call that an overreaction. These offense looked bad in the second half. The offense didn't have that guy to go to. Treylon Burks, I thought, was going to step up, and he seems almost like the gimmicky guy. Right? It almost seems like that. You have Wright and Woods and what else? It's all on Derrick Henry's shoulders. And you can see that Mike Vrabel didn't want to give Derrick Henry all those massive carries. So it's not an overreaction to say Tennessee might be heading in the wrong direction. Tennessee, a team 30 wins over the last 3 years. That they averaged 10 a year under Tannehill and Vrabel. This might be the year that things start kind of falling apart. The Philadelphia Eagles, the overreaction for Philadelphia is, hey, you know what? This defense that we paid for, it's not worth it. Calm down, hold up. Defense, just like an offensive line, takes a minute to kind of get flowing. I love the defensive moves that the Philadelphia Eagles made in the offseason. I think that they will come to fruition. Now, there is another overreaction here, and that is Jalen Hurts to Brown is going to be a thing all year. It is going to be a thing. He's the number one receiver. But let's calm down. Brown is not in the same conversation, at least not for me, with Cooper Kupp and Chase and Jefferson and Diggs, right? Even Devontae Adams. He's clearly outside, to me, the top 5 at that position. But I think he's legitimately close to the top 10. So depending on what kind of reaction you had really is moving forward. And then you have the Minnesota Vikings. Well, I think the Minnesota Vikings overreaction is very simply Justin Jefferson is going to put up a Cooper Kupp type of year. And I'm calling this a huge overreaction. Look, I said Justin Jefferson was going to win Offensive Player of the Year, but a Cooper Kupp type of year was historic. So calm down with that. Don't expect that. Expect Justin Jefferson to perhaps be the best wide receiver in the league. Expect the Minnesota Vikings to go to him early and often, pepper him. Expect him to get close to 200 yards in a couple of more games this year. But a Cooper Kupp type of year only comes around once in a lifetime, and I just don't think that anybody is going to go out there and get a Cooper Kupp type of season. All right, guys, look, that is the week 1 overreactions looking at week 2. I'll kind of do this every week, including big-time storylines that come out over the course of the week. Enjoy week 2, everybody. If you like this, please make sure that you hit the like button below. Share, comment. I want to hear your opinion on it. And go check me out at TomBartonSports.com. Tom Barton Sports over on Twitter. You want to email me, it's TomBartonSports@gmail.com. Have a very good day, everybody.